Let's face it, Brian, we all lead busy lives, crazy schedules, lots of stuff to manage. But at the core, we're looking to live in a more balanced, harmonious way. That's where California Closets comes in. I just realized my was way too high.
That's okay. It was very soothing and meditative.
Thank you.
California Closets has been building customized storage spaces all over the home for 40 years. Their expert design consultants get to know you, your needs, and your lifestyle. And then they design a solution that is completely tailored to your life.
They make it super easy. They create your design in 3D so you can see everything before you buy. The installers are professional. Their custom work is impeccable. Some of them are kind of hot. They do the job quickly and leave your home cleaner than they found it. California Closets has so many options. Beautiful finishes, space-saving storage ideas, and cool lighting. You can explore everything by visiting a local showroom near you.
I had an amazing experience, Katie, with California Closets. I had an extra room in my house. I wasn't using it at all. It was sort of going to waste. Our closets were jam-packed with crap. And my wife and I built an extra closet area in this room, and it really transformed our home. I don't know. What was your experience with California Closets?
Well, I'm not the neatest person on the planet, as you know,
Understatement
Brian.
of the year.
So it's just nice to have a place for everything. Now I just have to make sure I put them back in the places that they're supposed to be. But really, I think you just feel better when you know where to find things, and you don't feel like your life is out of control when your closet's out of control. What can I say?
Get started on your own project today by requesting a free design consultation at californiaclosets.com/Katie. Call California Closets today. It's like a little slice of organized heaven. This podcast is sponsored by ADT. ADT can design and install a smart home just for you, backed by 24/7 protection, like turn-down service, an ADT automation that arms your system, locks your doors, and turns down your lights and thermostat, all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice, and backed by 24/7 protection. Just visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can design and install a secure smart home just for you. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Brian. Well, I'm a little sad today because summer is my favorite season, and sadly it's drawing to an end. And I'm not ready to accept that. So I'm coming out to LA, to the land of sunshine. California, here I come.
Are you coming to visit me?
Of course I plan to see you while I'm in town, but also Ellie, my daughter, who lives in Los Angeles. But the real reason I'm coming, as much as I love you and Ellie, my daughter, is to support a cause that's very near and dear to my heart, and one that I really haven't talked about that much on this podcast.
Until today, that is.
That's right. In this episode, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're going to be excited about this because it's something that I'm so passionate about. We'll be diving into cancer and cancer research. Many of you might remember that I lost my extraordinary first husband, Jay Monahan, to colon cancer 20 years ago, if you can believe that, right before his 42nd birthday. I was the co-anchor of the Today Show, and many viewers lived the experience almost along with me. And just a few years later, I lost my sister, Emily, to pancreatic cancer when she was 54 and a rising star in politics. Two tremendous losses for me and my family and Jay's family.
But what people might not realize, Katie, is that you actually turned those tragedies into something more positive because you co-founded with 8 other women this extraordinary organization called Stand Up to Cancer. And I was blown away to learn that you've raised nearly $500 million since it was founded 10 years ago.
I couldn't just rest on my laurels when it came to colonoscopies, Brian. I felt that so many cancers deserved our attention. And the ladies at Stand Up to Cancer and the entire organization, because after all, it does take a village, will not rest until more money is raised. And the day after this episode drops, I'll be in LA to mark the 10-year anniversary of Stand Up to Cancer and the live telecast that we've been having every other year since its inception. So if you'd like to tune in, the telecast will be broadcast on 70 broadcast and cable networks, as well as streaming platforms and online. So honestly, if you're anywhere near a screen or even a phone, you are not going to be able to avoid this telecast on Friday night.
And just as an additional sweetener for people, in addition to these extraordinary stories and amazing scientists, the telecast is also going to feature a lot of star power, including the likes of Bradley Cooper and Reese Witherspoon and Mahershala Ali.
I should probably explain, Brian, to our listeners how Stand Up to Cancer puts the dollars it raises to work. Our goal is to really accelerate groundbreaking, promising cancer research and mandate. We don't encourage, we require collaboration instead of competition. So we have set up dream teams of scientists who are focused on various cancers like pancreatic cancer or nanotechnology, epigenetics. See, I've become quite the scientific researcher, right, Brian? And these dream teams are basically a scientific task force. And the idea is to get them these top researchers from different institutions to work together so they can develop new approaches and new treatments for this terrible disease that claims far too many lives every single year.
And later in the show, we're going to hear from a top oncologist who's contributed enormously to Stand Up to Cancer's research efforts. He answers a lot of your questions and mine, Katie, about the future of cancer research, the most promising therapies now, what you should do if you're diagnosed with cancer, et cetera, et cetera.
And he will give us the big picture, Bill Nelson. I have a little crush on Bill. Don't tell him, by the way, Brian. But another person I have a little crush on is Matthew McConaughey. He's been such an important supporter of Stand Up to Cancer, and we're so lucky to have so many celebrities stand with us. And that's because, what can I say, Brian? Stars, they're just like us. They too have been affected by cancer. So I recently chatted with Matthew about why this work has become so important to him and how it's affected him personally. Tell me why you wanted to get involved with Stand Up to Cancer.
I think I was involved in Stand Up to Cancer actually before cancer affected people very close to me. So Lisa Paulson asked me to be involved in 2015 with the whole campaign, and I said yes. And then shortly after that, I believe, is when cancer did affect some people in my near circumference. Very, very good friend of mine, one of my best friends of 20 years, got cancer, and then someone in my family got it. And, you know, when it happens, one, it's scary. Two, you want to go, well, I want to get all the information I can. You know, what experts can help me, can help them. It's amazing how when a cancer diagnosis affects someone you know and love, or even yourself, you are suddenly immersed in this new world of terms and sort of science and drugs and alternative therapies and approaches. It can be so overwhelming, can it? Yes. And I think it's hard, especially if you're going through it yourself. Sometimes, I know in the case of my husband, when he was diagnosed, as smart as he was, he didn't really want to know. Right. He didn't want to see the research or the science or the statistics. He didn't. So you did. And then you helped shepherd and guide him from there? Is that how that went? Okay. Yes. And I think that's the case. I think some patients want to know and some patients don't. And did you feel like you needed to be that sort of explorer and you needed to really understand it so you could help the people you love? That's exactly how I felt. I felt like I was the one who needed to do the exploration. I was the one who needed to get the access to the expert, get the knowledge, gather it as much and far and wide as I could, and then sit down and go over options and go over practicalities and go over long shots and go over repercussions. You do this is, you know, it goes to that question. This may extend life, but there may be more pain. Then you have that question, quality of life versus quantity along the way, and different questions arise. And I've been in a position where I was the hunter and gatherer of the information and went to Stand Up to Cancer to find out so much of that information. And then, as you know, it's up to the individual who has it. It's there. It becomes down to that personal choice, which is, you know, not ours unless we're the one to make, which is, what do you want to do? And there's many signposts along the way. Here's where we are. Here's the new evolution in the disease. What do you want to do? Here's what we can do. What would you like to do?
In some cases, there's not a lot that can be done.
Right.
And it's very difficult in this day and age when there are so many, medications and science has taken us so far that many of these cancers continue to be so vexing.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's not a magic pill. There's not that major breakthrough that says we've figured it out. We know how to cure all these many types of cancer. And so that's frustrating. But it's a reality. And as you know, you got to get on with the reality that if we, the people shepherding and helping out those with cancer, if we get overly frustrated, it's no help to the victim or the one with cancer. So I just personally try to take a very practical approach and say, look, let me keep pounding on trying to do the homework. Let me personally talk to their doctor along the way, and give me the straight nuts and bolts along the way. What are we really talking about? What's give me percentages? Where are we? And let's be real. And both the people that my friend and the family member that I worked with wanted to know the straight stuff. One of them towards the end didn't want to know it anymore. Said, no, I don't want to hear anymore. Just let me enjoy in my ignorance right now. I don't want to hear anymore the stats for me. The other one wanted to know the whole way until they actually they did move on.
I was going to ask you about the outcome for both of these people.
Well, both have moved on. They're no longer with us in this life on this earth. Besides, as you know, with just the disease of cancer, there's a lot of personal wants and needs that anyone on the way out wants or doesn't want. Was there things incomplete in their life? Were there relationships that were incomplete that they just want to have? Let me just finish that off. Then there's the question of, how much pain do you want to go through? Is more time worth more pain? Or no, I want to fight it till the end. I'll go through whatever pain because I may be able to break through it. How long do you keep fighting on that? How long do you go, you know what? It's too much pain. Let me fade out. And then, you're waiting every day and you think something else might come up and there is a new breakthrough and hey, we could try this. And then you try all you can. And many people have survived. Like I said, 15.5 million survivors running around living their life now. And I think 26% less cases now in the United States than there used to be. So you hope, that the person you're shepherding is going to be one of those 15.5 million or the next one. At the same time, I mean, it's a son of a bitch, man, this thing. It's a beast, and we don't have it lassoed yet. But, it like I said at the beginning, it's helpful to whoever has it, and it's helpful to whoever of us who is helping do the homework and shepherd our loved one out to know that some place like Stand Up to Cancer is a place that's going to get you all the information you can get. So you don't have a black hole there. Once, in case they do move on, should I, would I, and could I have?
That's the way I felt with my husband.
Right.
I wanted to make sure I did everything I possibly could. So this was before Stand Up to Cancer even existed. Yeah. But I was calling pharmaceutical companies in Israel. I was doing so much research and calling universities and organizations and hoping that we could manage his disease long enough that another breakthrough would occur. Yeah. And I think that's how you operate when you're trying to help someone you love with cancer.
So you were operating like that at the same time that your husband was like, I don't want to know anymore. Don't tell me about it. Katie, do the homework for me. Let me know. Was he saying, just tell me where to go, but I don't want to know all about it?
He didn't really say it specifically, but I also shielded him from a lot, which now I have some regrets about. Because I think I didn't want to tell him how bad it was because he was so advanced when he was diagnosed. Right. He had stage 4 colon cancer and he had tumors all over his liver. And it was just so bleak that I made the choice of feeling that I didn't want to ruin whatever time he had left.
Right.
But that really wasn't my decision to make, so now I feel bad about it.
Well, maybe it was, though.
I don't know. I know when you played Ron Woodruff in Dallas Buyers Club, the HIV positive person who was told he had 30 days to live, which was such an unbelievable, extraordinary performance. I know you won an Academy Award for that. But you actually channeled a little bit a friend of yours who you saw dying of cancer.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that would be a third. That was pre-2015. Yes, indeed. There was a good friend of mine who slowly cancer got the best of him. And he was one of those fighters. He was one of those, till the bitter end, teeth gnawing, growling, screaming, come on, gritting teeth, I'm going to make it. Just what he gnawed at the situation.
Did not want to go gently into this good night.
Not going to fade out at all. And he didn't, until his body broke down enough where his willpower couldn't overcome it.
But you used him in a way, the image of him, to model a little bit that performance.
I don't know how literal that was. It was just somebody in my life and a friend who had come, and he had always been a fighter before he was sick. And then afterwards, I just remember there's that he was like a coyote. He was just like, if he was stuck, he was willing to gnaw off his leg to get out of the trap. He was willing to do anything. And so he went pretty quickly. I saw him very shortly before he moved on, and he still had as much fight in him as he did, 8 months earlier. But it was more his willpower to say, no, I'm not going. And if I do go, it's going to be on the last drop of life that I have.
Is there something about Stand Up to Cancer and the way it's sort of operating and focusing on collaboration versus competition, and really trying to change how cancer research is done, that made you want to support this organization? Because there are a lot of groups doing great work when it comes to cancer.
I mean, look, all medicine should not, nor was ever invented to become a competition. And we know, rightfully so, that it's also big business, which makes it a competition in places. It's like teaching. You know what I mean? It's like if you have a good idea or a good class, scale it out, share it for free. Come on, what's the end goal? So the collaboration that Stand Up uses is how it ought to be. I wouldn't be, there are some people that, yes, compete. They still do some good work, but it shouldn't be a private club, that somebody who's not in that club does not have access to the expertise that they could offer. So, and we don't have it. It's not figured out yet. So we need a lot more collaboration. No one's got the magic pill, so let's go far and wide, because all bets are still on the table for what's the best way and how to handle and diagnose and treat different type of cancers are.
For so long, research was siloed and people did not share their knowledge or test results or tissue samples. And the thought is, if we do collaborate, if scientists share what they're doing, then if 2 heads are better than 1, 10 heads are better than 2, and we can get treatments to patients at a much faster rate.
Well, that's just common sense.
I know that your most famous line from your very first movie, which I rewatched, Dazed and Confused.
When did you rewatch it?
This morning we watched some clips.
It's a good way to start the day.
You just got to keep living, man.
Yeah.
Is that your message to people who are fighting cancer too?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a line that is universal, yet is specific to everybody. They can apply it to their own lives however they want to.
It was inspired because you
lost. When my father moved on, and it was about how I was dealing with my relationship with him, and he had just moved on. So
that was 5 days into your shooting that film.
5 days into shooting Dazed and Confused was my first acting job. My father moved on. And I went home for that weekend, spent the weekend. We had the wake, and the whole family said, get your butt back there to work. Nothing you can do here. Go back to it. And I think it was like the first night we were back. It was a scene on the football field. And I had been obviously, doing some soul searching with what it all meant. Physically, it was gone. But the Just Keep Living came from, well, you still keep someone's spirit alive, even though maybe physically they're not here. Now, personally, for me, Just Keep Living, I apply it to many parts of my life, and I think everyone can apply it in their own different way. It's Just Keep Living mean I want to, like that friend of mine that's going, I want to live as long, I want to live, I'll take quantity over quality. I don't care how much pain I'm in. I want to live longer. For some it is. Others, the Just Keep Living choice may be, you know what? Enough of the pain right now. I'm ready. I'm talking about quality of life, and I don't want to take the pain that I'm in right now for another however many weeks, days, months. I don't want the quantity. I don't want more quantity. I'm good right now. And that's up to each individual to say. And it's also, as you know, it's a conversation that we need to have with our friends and loved ones before they're so sick, before they're in that much pain, to have it, at a time where they're as lucid as possible.
As a society, we have such a hard time talking about death.
Yeah, and yet it's one of the guarantees. I wish we didn't have such a hard time talking about it. I think sometimes talking about it feels like a concession to some people. I've got a woman very close to me who beat 3 types of cancer and didn't tell me she had it until her 3rd one. And never went to a doctor. I said, what were you doing for it? She goes, I was taking 2 aspirin. But her attitude and her mental makeup had so much to do with her making it. She was actually stayed in denial. So I think talking about death, or even sometimes people going to see a doctor to concede and go, I need to get some help, can sometimes make our immune and innate reaction be like, oh, now I'm a victim. Now I'm conceding that death is out there. And I think some people feel weak about that. But I think it's good if we can talk about it up front as early as possible, because it's happening. One day or another, it's happening.
Well, as somebody involved with Stand Up to Cancer, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you lending your name and celebrity to this, because I think it inspires other people and makes them want to get involved. And if they see someone they admire and like kind of standing up for Stand Up,
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll follow suit. So thank you for doing that.
Well, I've got a personal investment in it, so people in my own life. So
who doesn't at this point? 1 in 2 men, 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed in their lifetime. So like it or not, there's very few people escape it. So thank you. Thank you for doing it.
My pleasure.
That wraps things up with the one and only Matthew McConaughey, folks. And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our second guest, Dr. Bill Nelson from the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. Hiring used to be hard. Multiple job sites, stacks of resumes, confusing review processes. But today, hiring can be easy, and you only have to go to one place to get it done. It's ziprecruiter.com/Couric.
Well, Katie, with their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards and scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience to apply. Now, as applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one and spotlights the top candidates so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day.
Well, I think it's hard to find great candidates if you don't know who to interview. And that's what's so great about ZipRecruiter, Brian. They just make so many qualified candidates available at your fingertips. It's much easier to make a match in terms of your needs and what these potential employees want to do.
And a professional match, not a personal one. We should be clear
yes,
about
this
that.
is
There
not
are other
Match.com.
websites for
This
that.
is ZipRecruiter, by the way.
With results like that, it's no wonder that ZipRecruiter is the highest-rated hiring site in America. And right now, our listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address. You need to get past the velvet rope and the guard, and you get this exclusive address, ZipRecruiter.com/Couric. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Couric, ZipRecruiter.com/COURIC.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. The truth is, most of us are brushing our teeth wrong, not for long enough, and we forget to change our brush on time. That's because most brands focus on selling flashy gimmicks instead of better brushing. But not Quip, ladies and gentlemen.
Quip is an electric toothbrush that costs a fraction of bulkier brushes and packs the right amount of vibrations to clean your teeth. The built-in timer and guiding pulses help you clean for the full dentist-recommended 2 minutes. Quip's subscription is built for your health, delivering new brush heads every 3 months for just $5, including free shipping worldwide. Quip also comes with a suction mount that unsticks to use as a cover for hygienic travel. Everyone loves Quip. They were on Oprah's O-list, and you got to listen to whatever Oprah says. They were named one of Time's best inventions, and it's the first subscription electric toothbrush accepted by the American Dental Association. They're even backed by a network of over 20,000 dentists and hygienists and hundreds of thousands of happy brushers.
Quip starts at just $25, and if you go to getquip.com/Katie right now, you'll get your first refill pack free with a Quip electric toothbrush. That's your first refill pack free at getquip.com/Katie, spelled GETQUIP.com/Katie. We're back. You know, Brian, as much as I appreciate celebrities like Matthew McConaughey who lend their star support to this cause, some of the real heroes in this fight, I'm sure Matthew would agree, are the scientists and doctors and clinicians who are working day in and day out to find new ways to help patients fighting cancer.
I disagree. No, I'm kidding. For our second and final chapter today, we're going to talk with one of these heroes, Dr. Bill Nelson, as you mentioned. He's nationally recognized as a physician and scientist, and he specializes in treating and researching prostate cancer.
In fact, he discovered the most common genome alteration in prostate cancer, which has led to more diagnostic tests for the disease. Talk about impressive. He's the director of the Sidney Kimmel Comprehensive Cancer Center at Johns Hopkins, and he is also on the Stand Up to Cancer Scientific Advisory Committee.
So in our conversation with Dr. Nelson, we dig into his work fighting all kinds of cancer, and we talked about why the approach of Stand Up to Cancer is so unique and has already yielded so many promising therapies.
Bill, let's talk about the model of Stand Up to Cancer. And from a scientist perspective, how is it different, and why, in your view, is it a positive thing?
Well, I think that the thing that attracted so much of the scientific and cancer research community initially was its ambition. These women had gotten together, as you know, and they wanted to do something bold and they wanted to do something big. And their thought was that if everyone could come together in dream teams, we called them, in which case you had everybody who could help on a particular cancer problem. They could focus on this problem, get considerable investment of resources over a short period of time, that they could make a huge difference quickly.
Dr. Nelson, Bill, if I might.
Absolutely.
Before Stand Up to Cancer, what did the world of cancer research look like? Why was there this need to create dream teams and collaborate?
Well, you had very dedicated people trying to make an impact on the cancer field. They were very competitive, and some of that was good in trying to outsmart or be cleverer than cancer. Then one might compete with someone else working on the same type of thing. And you didn't share information, didn't share data until you delivered a publication into the medical literature. That often was months after the discovery was made. And I think what became clear around the time Stand Up to Cancer is people were starting to work together, not just to not compete with each other, but we were starting to bring together areas of deep expertise, medical oncology, structural biology, chemistry, cell biology, engineering, all these things, bringing them all together to ask much more impactful questions about what cancer is and how it might be better treated.
on one level, you were collaborating with different kinds of scientists and different kind of experts bringing their expertise together. But in terms of institutions and medical establishments and biotech firms, it was very, very proprietary, wasn't it, Bill?
Certainly in the biotechnology industry, it's proprietary because they're trying to build a product to outcompete the next company. But there was a lot of that ongoing, I think, at our nation's and the world's leading cancer centers, so they could say, we're the place that discovered this important thing.
So it was very political in a way.
Very much so, yes.
And politics are everywhere.
Politics
you see
are
that,
everywhere.
Brian? And so initially, I know a lot of the scientists were a little bit nervous about this whole new paradigm, thinking, we're not going to share our valuable research, our blood, sweat, and tears. If we're at such and such a hospital or institution, we're not going to share it with the people, on the other side of the country. What was the reaction initially like?
Well, I think it had ripened a bit so that the idea was very timely. And I think you're right. I think innately, scientists were a little bit nervous. What am I going to share? Will I share a little bit, but not the most important part or what have you? I think what started to happen, though, is that some of the collaborative kinds of research were getting answers that people just weren't getting when they're working on their own late at night and, in a dark laboratory. And I think people saw that this should work, although I think they were a little nervous about taking it on. I think that's a fair view.
And so basically what Stand Up said is, you're not getting our money unless you work together.
Unless you play nice.
Well, they did say that. And the other side was that, it was very clear from the get-go that the Stand Up to Cancer enterprise reached the general public in very, very much broader and more important ways. And remember, all along we were concerned in all of cancer research that not enough of the cancer patients were participating in clinical trials and the like. And here was a magic kind of time where cancer researchers were going to come together, but the entertainment industry and the TV news industry was going to come together and tell everybody the story of cancer. So those two things together, it was fated to work, and it has worked incredibly well.
So after the initial resistance, there was excitement. And I think my impression, Bill, is once the scientists started working together and collaborating and getting to know each other and sharing their results and tissue samples and all sorts of things, they felt incredibly energized by this, didn't they?
Well, you've watched each year as we come to the scientific summit, and you watch the culture of how people interact, the scientists. And I think that's exactly right. I can think of two scientists from my own field, cancer epigenetics, Peter Jones and Steve Balin. They're a leader of a dream team. These were arch rivals throughout most of my career in science. They vacation together now. So they not only begin to see things together and how they might work together, but the whole culture of science, I think, has changed. And you watched it year to year coming to the scientific summit.
It's actually been a really moving thing to witness, because I've always said if 2 heads are better than 1, 10 heads are better than 2. And why not pool your incredible science and hard work and intelligence, intellect, and just help patients instead of helping the scientist's ego, with all due respect, Bill?
Yeah, no, at some point I hope that people leave some of their ego at the door. We want them to have enough of an ego to be bold enough to have a new idea and build that idea up into something important if it's the answer. But other than that, it's just in the way. I agree.
So, Bill, I want to ask you a few questions about cancer that may seem very obvious to you and to Katie, but to civilians like me, I think your expertise will be very helpful. So I keep hearing a lot about immunotherapy, and basically here's what I know. Immunotherapy trains your body's immune system to attack the cancer, which it won't do on its own in many cases. Can you explain where immunotherapy is and why it's so important?
Yeah, well, I think you've got a beat on the immune system. The immune system is remarkable. It's capable generally of distinguishing threats of the body, whether they're bacteria or viruses or fungi or somebody's kidney that's been transplanted into you. They can distinguish that from the normal cells in the body. And I think for a long time, scientists wondered whether the immune system could also see cancer cells as different from normal cells. I think at this point, we're pretty well convinced that they absolutely can. So the question then became, if the immune system can see the cancer, recognize that it's not normal, why can't it mount an attack and destroy the cancer the way it would try and destroy bacteria or viruses or the like? And for some of them, it looks like the cancer is sneaky. It holds up what I think of as the talk to the hand response. The immune cell shows up and it holds it at bay. The importance of that is that can be defeated with a new series of drugs. There are 5 of them now FDA approved called immune checkpoint inhibitors, or 6, I guess, that stops that response, unleashes the immune system, and for many people, the immune system can destroy the cancer. It looks like it can keep it at bay for a very long time. We're beginning to wonder whether these people are cured. Truly remarkable.
It is so exciting, and cancer is such a wily, vicious opponent. And I think, Brian, for so long, even if you turbocharge the immune system, the cancer cells or something within the cells or outside the cells could figure out a way around it, right? To Bill's point, they would set up these blockades, or his metaphor, the talk to the hand thing, but they can remove the blockades, turbocharge the immune system, and let it do its job. And we're seeing some very exciting developments in this field of cancer research when it comes to this really relatively new approach, which a lot of scientists used to mock, actually, right?
Well, I think the people who worked on immunotherapy for a long time were it wasn't working very well, and I think that many of their colleagues reminded them that on occasion. But these new immune checkpoint inhibitors are just stunning. And of course, now the challenge is they work incredibly well for a fraction of the people with many different types of cancers that get treated. They don't work at all for some other folks, and we need to know why that's the case, because what we assume is if we can figure out why, perhaps we can energize the immune system in these people to work as effectively as it does in the others.
You also have to be careful, Bill, right, about turbocharging the immune system too much, because if the immune system, Brian, I love to talk about this stuff, and Brian does know a lot about it, but if the immune system is too powerful, that, of course, can have some very adverse effects on the patient.
The use of these immune checkpoint inhibitors does walk a tightrope of immunity a little bit. And when the immune system gets too revved up, as Katie was saying, you get itis, or inflammation in almost any organ you can name, whether it's colitis in the colon, pneumonitis in the lungs. Those are some of the more catastrophic ones. And so what's happened as the physicians learn to use these drugs better and better and more safely, they're far more attuned to minor side effects. A little bit of a cough means a lot when you're on one of these drugs. You get, evaluated very quickly. The thing that's exciting is it looks like you can slow down the autoimmune attack, the attack on the lung or the colon or something, reasonably effectively without undermining the effect on the cancer very much. And that's very promising. But that's how that medicine of that field is shaping up.
For our listeners, which are the cancers that are now most responsive to immunotherapies, and which are the ones that have been the most challenging?
Well, there's 3 to think a lot about. One are melanomas, and melanomas, the response rates are the highest. The fraction of people with melanoma that benefit from immune checkpoint inhibitor treatment is the highest. Non-small cell lung cancer, we call it, one of the kinds of lung cancers respond extremely well. And the other one are cancers that arise in the setting of an inherited deficiency in DNA mismatch repair enzymes. That's a bunch of science gobbledygook to say there's an inherited syndrome where people develop cancers, often colon cancer, but some others as well. And the reason they do is that they get more and more acquired defects in genes. Acquired defects in genes underlie cancer generally, but they get many, many of them, and the immune system can see these cancers far more easily, it appears. And so taking down this checkpoint barrier looks like it unleashes the immune system after these types of cancers. And these sample many, many different kinds of cancer types.
Not to be self-serving, but Stand Up to Cancer has raised close to $500 million. Yes, that's billion with a B, folks, dollars. And much of that money goes to support scientific research. And Bill, it's a little different in terms of how you all and the Scientific Advisory Committee determine where that money goes. Can you explain that quickly for us?
Well, when we look for the dream teams, we have teams come together and we help them even before they apply. And we say, don't leave anyone out who can be helpful. That's the secret to a great dream team. They'll then propose a series of bold ideas. We'll review what they have written. We'll give them some advice on improving it. We'll invite them to come give an oral presentation in front of a whole committee of scientists, try and pick the ones that we think we should go after. And then after the funding is awarded, the scientific oversight group continues to watch over these dream teams. We sit with them every 6 months and hear their progress. We hear where they've gotten stuck. We help them overcome obstacles. Early on, those obstacles were getting the culture right to work as a team. We had to do a lot of work there. That's not such an issue anymore. They tend to work pretty well as a team now. And then we bring back what they've learned, report up to the women who founded Stand Up to Cancer, so we can say this is what's working, this is what's not working. And what you all do with that information is you use it to tell a story and go raise more funds.
There's also a time frame, which I think is really important, because patients are desperate, and I think, people are desperate to come up with better treatments, if not a cure, but at least treatments that can keep the cancer at bay. So you tell these scientists they have to really put their foot on the gas pedal, right?
The support is for 3 years. We want them to be in the clinic helping people. And if they're in the middle of a clinical trial and it's ongoing and the 3-year clock comes up, we'll continue that clinical trial. But we want them to, as you say, put the pedal to the metal, get the idea translated, we call it, into a clinical trial so that people can benefit directly.
Because time is of the essence for these cancer patients and their families.
When you've heard those 3 words, you have cancer, time, it means a completely different meaning. So,
And when people hear that, you have cancer, I mean, this may seem like a simple question, but what are the best next steps? How do you figure out, where can I get the right treatment? How can I afford the right treatment? Should I listen to this advice? Should I get a second opinion, et cetera? How can I make sure that my treatment is benefiting from the breakthroughs that are happening with Stand Up to Cancer?
Well, I think anyone who's heard the words "you have cancer" as a diagnosis of cancer will work with their loved ones. They'll go seek medical help. I think the idea of getting a second opinion is just sound advice generally for anything anyone tells you in medicine. One of the things that's really helpful is where the clinical trials are. One thing about clinical research in cancer medicine is it's innately the state of the art or better. That's what you get with a clinical trial. You also get a number of people second-guessing the physician's decisions. You have the process of doing clinical research. You have a number of people watching to make sure the correct medical decisions are made. So people like me believe the highest quality cancer care is associated with cancer clinical trials. So looking for, are there opportunities to participate in clinical research? Are you a candidate to be part of a clinical trial? Is a good way to learn more about cancer and to start making your own decisions with the help of your physician.
Getting back to how the research grants are awarded, I know that one of our goals is to fund young researchers who have out-of-the-box ideas, because that's important for a number of reasons. First of all, there's a serious brain drain, right? A lot of scientists come here and then they leave the country because they want to get more financial support. So we want to really encourage young scientists to stay in this country. And secondarily, some of these ideas are too unconventional to be funded in more traditional ways, correct?
That's right. We have, I think, now 46 or maybe even 50 innovative research grant awardees. That's what we call these young researchers, and they're just plain remarkable. As you know, the late Laura Ziskin had a particular place in her heart for this program. She got to know, while she was alive, everyone who was in this program very personally, would go to their posters at the summit, ask them exactly what they're up to. And this is the best that we have in the country who show up and apply for these things. And if they're any reflection on what the world of cancer is going to look like in a few years, we're going to be in good shape. They're an incredibly talented group of people.
It's very exciting and incredibly gratifying to see them, Brian. I think they're sort of like the Brian Goldsmiths of the science world.
Oh, my God. That's not true. I hope they're way better for the sake of all the people with cancer.
I'm making Brian blush. Hey, Brian, let's talk a little to Bill about his background. What's a nice guy like you doing in a field like this? Give us a quick thumbnail sketch of your CV and why you decided to become a cancer scientist, and a damn good one at that, Bill.
Well, thank you. I was not someone interested in a pre-medical education. I went to college mostly to kick soccer balls and get an education. I thought I'd kick soccer balls for a couple of years and be a lawyer or something. I didn't have very definitive plans. I managed to find myself without a job and went to work for someone who brought his kids to soccer camps and stuff. And I had majored in chemistry and sort of quantum mechanics because I thought it was interesting. Didn't take any biology.
Where'd you go to college?
Went to Yale College up the street from here.
My safety school.
Well, yeah, safety school. And I can remember this person, Joe McGuire, was the person who ran the lab, and he was doing a clinical research on one of the first uses of retinoids in children with scaling skin disorders called ichthyoses. So they looked kind of funny. And the kids were, 12, 13-year-olds, and same kind of kids who come to soccer camps. And I can remember scraping skin off of them to do stuff in the laboratory and talking to them. And I was incredibly impressed with how much they knew about clinical research. They thought perhaps this new drug might help them, but it was more likely not because they've tried things before. But even if it didn't work, they were pretty convinced that the next set of children with the same disorders would be benefited. And I was very moved by that. And I can remember taking this one boy and his mom up to the laboratory, trying to show him what I was doing, giving my best lay explanation. And I looked at them at some point, realized they had no earthly idea what I was talking about, but they cared deeply that this much activity was being expended on their behalf. And I can remember at that point I said, sign me up. This is what I want to do. I want to do something that brings new treatments to people. And I remember Joe said, well, then you're going to have to go to medical school, which I didn't have the right curriculum for. But Johns Hopkins took a risk on me. I ended up, and I was never going to do anything other than cancer. I think it's the one where you can make the biggest difference by coming up with something new.
Well, we're glad you did.
Well,
so thank you.
You're a leader in what's known as translational research. Can you translate that for me? I'm sorry. I wanted to use Talline all day.
Can you translate translational research?
Yeah. No, so translational research is the idea that you can make discoveries about biologic processes and the like, but to get them into a clinical setting, to translate them from science, if you will, to medicine, is what we think of as translational research. So we try and take the best ideas that arise out of how cells work, how tissues work, and turn them into new opportunities to build, approaches to treatment, early detection, screening, prevention, and the like.
One of the other exciting things about, I think, the world of cancer research right now is, I think you mentioned it earlier, this confluence or convergence of all these experts in different fields. And I think one of the most important game changers, it seems to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, is data and how data is going to impact cancer research. Now, we hear that all the time, but can you explain in practical terms what data can do for you as a scientist and for patients everywhere?
Well, there's all kinds of data that you could perhaps bring together to help people more and more in medicine, but think of cancer for a second, right? All cancers are disorders of acquired defects in genes, which means we're talking DNA like CSI on the television show. 3 billion bases of DNA, that's the code of DNA in every cell in the body. Think about this. Human beings are 99.9% identical at the DNA sequence level, and depending on who you're sitting next to, that may or may not be a scary thought.
I was going to say, I'm not sure.
But it does say there's a lot more in common between people than we might think politically. But that also means there's 3 million differences between any two individuals. We now have the ability to look at all the disorders, all the acquired defects in all the genes, 3 billions of bases at a time, huge numbers. And this starts to fill up computers, overtaxes microprocessors and the like. And that's just to think about one particular cancer case. What if we thought about all of breast cancer? Can we classify it in a way that's perhaps different than before, which would say this woman might not need chemotherapy after surgery, something that's been in the news a bit, or this woman might benefit from it, or this woman might benefit from trastuzumab, Herceptin, and this woman might not. As we're beginning to make these choices, we're using huge amounts of data computers in different ways. And you're right, data science itself is what this is becoming.
So it's really not only the collection of data, in other words, the information about all these individual cases, but how it is organized and how scientists can compare situations and outcomes and then come up with better recommendations. Is that the right way to think of it?
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And one of the challenges, of course, is as there are electronic health records now throughout the country that most of us have somewhere, they have largely been launched, if you will, for billing purposes, billing and compliance, not to necessarily maintain the kind of information you'd love to use to see whether a treatment worked for everyone who've had this life experience and this DNA and put them all together. That's what's going to happen. I think everyone's convinced, but it's been a little bit slower than we'd like to see.
But when it does happen, how will it change the face of cancer research and treatment?
Oh, I think it's going to change it immensely. I think once you realize that although we're all very similar, we're all different. No two cancers are going to be exactly alike.
Because cancer is different in everyone's individual biology.
That's right. And so we're going to give the right treatment at the right time to the right person at the right dose. All that's going to be possible.
Because you're going to have the information at your fingertips.
That's right.
To see, sort of to quantify, right?
That's right.
What treatment is the most efficacious? I always like to use the word efficacious. I feel like it makes me sound smart. What do you think, Brian?
Instead of effective? Yeah. Well, it makes it sound a little flowery.
Why do scientists say efficacious versus effective?
I don't know. I'm stuck on whether or not it works.
Can I ask something kind of related to that, which is artificial intelligence has become such a buzz phrase in the world in general and in science in particular. How is AI going to change cancer research or treatment?
Well, AI is a perfect way to go with this big data type discussion, right? So artificial intelligence particularly can seek and see patterns. And if the data are collected in a high quality, quantitative way, as Katie was talking about, the better inputs are going to drive the better artificial intelligence algorithms and insights.
So AI is basically just means it's like it can analyze the data and organize the data and interpret the data, right?
That's right. It sees patterns. So I think the first place you're going to see big hits from AI in medicine are in looking at images like mammograms or CT scans, as they call them. And the other is in helping pathologists look at slides. And I think they'll see these patterns. I suspect in the end that the AI tool will be one that works with a doctor rather than replaces one. They'll drive the pathologist's eyes to a particular part of the slide saying in their artificial intelligence algorithm, this looks suspicious to us. So the pathologist will examine and says, yes, that's suspicious because it's a cancer, and you'll go. And I think that's where you're going to see the earliest hits.
You're just going to have many more tools in your toolkit to help patients, which is so exciting. As somebody whose husband died of colon cancer in the span of 9 months and whose sister died of pancreatic cancer in less than 2 years, the idea of that being available is so moving and heartening to me.
No, it's incredible. And that wasn't that long ago. And so the idea that things are moving now finally the way they need to be, faster and faster, helping more and more people, that's what we all want.
And, Stand Up has funded a lot of breakthroughs. And I just want to give you all a hat tip for that. And also it gives me great pride to know that we have helped facilitate some of these breakthroughs. Can you just tick them off real quickly, Bill?
Just in the last 10 years, there have been incredible things that have happened as a result of Stand Up to Cancer and these dream teams. 5 new cancer treatments approved by the Food and Drug Administration, which means they're out there and people with cancer can benefit from them. New targeted treatments for breast cancer and ovarian cancer, a new chemotherapy-like drug for pancreatic cancer, new bionic T cells called CAR T cells for leukemia. When they work so well, they make people very sick. So there's new strategies to how stop that particular side effect. All of this out there, all of this available today, and 10 years after Stand Up to Cancer started.
Well, it's really exciting, but of course, it's not enough. I can't tell you how many direct messages I get through Instagram or through other means with people just desperate, Bill, for some kind of treatment, young people, old people, all ages. And, of course, we just lost 2, I think, American heroes from cancer, John McCain from glioblastoma, I think 9 years to the day after Teddy Kennedy died of the same thing, and Aretha Franklin from pancreatic cancer. So if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen? Obviously, we'd like to cure all cancers and make them history, but what do you see happening in the future to help the people who sadly and tragically are not being helped?
Well, I think we do need to cure everyone with cancer, and I think we're going to slowly but surely get to there. And by that I don't mean too slowly. I think we're finally moving quickly enough that you're starting to see people benefit who historically you didn't think of as benefiting very much, but those two are ones that we just don't do well enough against. Brain tumors, as you mentioned, whether it's Beau Biden or John McCain or Teddy Kennedy or anybody who knows somebody with a malignant brain tumor, we just don't do well enough against that cancer. We need to work harder and get some new insights. Pancreatic cancer, it's just starting to get a little bit brighter, I think, but this is still a cancer that's growing in incidence in our country as some of other cancers are receding. So we're going to have to struggle with some cancers that we're not doing very well with. Another more subtle challenge, which I'm hopeful about, is that, most cancers arise, I think 80% of them arise in people over the age of 60. The good news is that we have people aging into their 60s, 70s. I know 70s is the new 25 or something, but we have people aging into their 60s and 70s in a much more healthy state. So of course we're going to treat their cancer. But by the same token, we're going to want different kinds of cancer treatments, ones that they can take that's a pill that they can still continue to work or whatnot. And that's starting to happen too. The cancer treatments just aren't as difficult to get through as they once were.
And Bill, you're the director of the Kimmel Cancer Center at Johns Hopkins. So you study all aspects of cancer. And we've been talking a lot about research and treatment. But can we just talk for a second about prevention? What do we know about things that those of us who are lucky enough not to have had cancer, or at least not to have had cancer yet, what can we do to prevent cancer in terms of, diet or lifestyle or anything like that?
Well, there's some straight off the bat that people should just do. One is vaccination against the human papillomavirus, HPV vaccination. Everyone, boys, girls, everyone should be vaccinated. It stops at least 3 different kinds of cancers, and it definitely works, and people should get it done. Smoking cessation is one of the reasons lung cancer mortality has been declining mercifully.
But smoking affects all cancers, right?
Smoking affects many cancers, that's right. And there's no question we got to stamp out smoking. Just as it seems to be working better and better in this country, we see smoking pop up in other parts of the globe. This is going to be a global challenge. And diet and exercise, having a healthier diet, a healthier weight, and exercise probably is a general preventative agent for many kinds of cancers, particularly those that are common in the Western world. And those 3 things people can just do on their own. They can get those things done. There are increasingly some strategies using early detection. Katie Couric has shown us her own early detection strategies periodically on television. But there's early detection kind of strategies and screening. And the other, of course, is there are some medicines out that help prevent breast cancer, and we need to discover more of those types of medicines that help prevent other cancers.
Well, we talk about early detection, and now one of the exciting things that I've recently learned is on the horizon, potentially very, very early stages, new ways of detecting cancer. I was at this Michael Milken Institute panel over the weekend, and they were talking about potentially working on a breathalyzer for lung cancer and colon cancer. And please, whenever I say these things, I worry that people will say, oh, we'll wait to get screened when they come up with the breathalyzer. Do not wait, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, if you're 45 or over, the American Cancer Society just lowered the age for a baseline screening colonoscopy or baseline screening for colon cancer to 45. So please, please, please get screened. But it was so interesting to me. They were kind of comparing how dogs can sniff out like diabetes now. It's so crazy, but so wild and cool. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yes, I've heard a little bit about this from Jonathan Simons at the Prostate Cancer Foundation, works with Michael Milk, and he's my old roommate, so I get to hear a lot about this.
Oh, wow. You guys must be really fun when you go out for a beer.
Yeah, we're exactly not exciting, even slightly. We're like those two old guys in the Muppet television program. But no, they can train dogs to sniff out a variety of diseases. These presumably are compounds, chemical compounds that are very volatile. Dogs have, I forget what it is, 50 to 100 times the number of odorant receptors in their nose as humans, so they can smell things better. And I think the answer is, what exactly are they smelling if they can sniff out cancer and other diseases, and can we develop ways to measure them? And then the next question is, does that get you any earlier or any more specific than colonoscopy or a DNA-based test or something like that?
Do you think that cancer will one day soon, and could you even predict when, be a disease of the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we'll be grappling with it for quite a while. And I think one of the reasons is that every time one cell divides to become two of those 3 billion base pairs, it makes a bunch of mistakes, thousands of them. Most of them get fixed, but about 5 to 10 sneak through. And as long as that happens, then cancer will hopefully be a rare disease, but I think we'll still likely have cancer to deal with.
Well, we are going to be dropping this episode, as they say in the biz, one day before our 5th biennial Stand Up to Cancer telecast. That's every 2 years, and I'm very excited. I'm going to be going out to L.A. Brian, I hope you'll come this year with your lovely bride, Claire.
We will be there.
And we have a lot of big, bold-faced names like Mahershala Ali from Moonlight, and Kathy Bates, who herself is a cancer survivor. Jennifer Garner, who's so cute. I'm actually excited to meet her. I guess I've met her, but I haven't seen her in a long time. Tony Hale, Ed Helms, Ken Jeong, whose wife is a breast cancer survivor, Matthew McConaughey, Marlee Matlin, who I love, Trevor Noah. We have Reese Witherspoon, Keith Urban, David Spade, Brian Goldsmith, Katie Couric, Bill Nelson. Actually, one of my favorite moments in our past telecast, Brian, is when we brought all the scientists on stage, because truly, and you've heard me say this time and time again, but maybe my listeners haven't, cancer researchers and scientists are my heroes. They are so extraordinarily dedicated and committed and super smart, scary smart, and I feel like they don't get enough accolades in our current culture. So to be able to celebrate everything you all do is such a thrill for me, and I hope that we'll be able to celebrate you all this year as well. I'm sure we're going to be giving you a big round of applause. I don't think your band is playing, Bill, this year during our telecast. You do play in a band.
I do, and it's a blast. There's no question.
Tell us about that. Is that a cancer band?
Actually, the woman who fronts the band is a breast cancer survivor, actually, and we were able to help her, and she's very public about her case, talks about it, and it's wonderful to see. There's a lot of, I'm sure that's why so many musical artists contribute. There's a lot of people in the music business have been very deeply touched by cancer and want to give back.
It's really no surprise, Bill, when you consider that 1 in 3 Americans will be diagnosed with some kind of cancer during the course of their lifetimes, that so many people want to participate in Stand Up to Cancer. And I also want to say how grateful we are to all the people who are so generous with their time, attention, and energy, and that they're willing to spend Friday night talking about this disease. And this year we're going to be celebrating all the victories that we've seen. You know, sometimes this is such a heavy subject, and it's so sad for so many people, but there are also so many survivors out there. And on this telecast, I think we're going to talk about the hope that all this research is ushering in for so many families.
And it's going to happen. It's happening more and more. One of the biggest groups growing in the United States now are cancer survivors, 14, 16, 18 million by 2026 or whatever the last number I saw. It's great to see.
And I hope people will get involved. You know, when I lost my husband and also my sister, I found being proactive and caring about something bigger than yourself and wanting to help other people was so cathartic for me. And in fact, John McCain, I posted on my Instagram a quote by John McCain. He said, if you find faults with our country, make it a better one. And then he goes on to ways that you can do things. And he says, our country will be better and you will be happier because nothing brings greater happiness in life than to serve a cause greater than yourself. So when people ask me, what can I do? I always say, do anything. Make a small contribution of $5. Get your kids to have a lemonade stand. You know, maybe get involved in a local cancer charity that gives support to patients who need it, who need even a drive to the doctor to get their chemo treatments. There's so many things that you can do. And I think the feeling of powerlessness that is so overwhelming during a cancer diagnosis or a cancer experience can be really offset by doing something proactive. So for all of you listening out there who have been touched by cancer and affected by it or are dealing with it right now, we would so welcome your involvement with Stand Up to Cancer. And you can go to our website and learn the myriad of ways that you can get involved. Can you tell I'm a little passionate about this?
Well, as you know, and you mentioned this, I think all the physicians and scientists that work on cancer are passionate as well and cannot be more thankful to you and the women who run Stand Up to Cancer that both raise funds to combat this disease and then increase the awareness of it so that everybody does better. It's really something.
Well, I always say it's going to be the first line in my obituary, but hopefully that won't be written anytime real soon. Bill Nelson, on that happy note, thank you so much, Bill, again, for everything you do, for coming here and being on our podcast. Brian, you want to say bye to Bill, too?
Bill, really appreciate your taking the time and educating us about cancer and the future of cancer, and I'm more optimistic than I was before we had this conversation.
Well, super. You're both are welcome, and thank you for having me.
That wraps things up for us for today, everyone. If you'd like to learn more about Stand Up to Cancer or get involved or even make a small contribution, please head to standuptocancer.org.
Every couple of years around this time, I make a contribution. I'm really glad that I have, and I'd encourage everyone to do the same, whether it's $5 or $5,000. You should give whatever you can because I can't imagine a better cause.
Thank you, Brian. And thanks as usual to our production team, Gianna Palmer, our producer, Nora Ritchie, our assistant producer, and Jared O'Connell, who mixes and engineers the show. And Beth DeMaz is a rock star in her own right.
Hear, hear. Special thanks this week to John Asante for his production help, as well as Andy Christens and Jordan Duffy for engineering.
And a big thank you this week to Kathleen Lobb, my friend and colleague since Excuse me, I am so sorry. Kathleen and I not only went to the University of Virginia together, but she is a huge and important force behind Stand Up to Cancer, and I feel so honored to be able to work with her after all these years. As always, a big thank you to Mark Phillips for our theme music. Brian and I are the show's executive producers, for better or for worse.
Remember, we love hearing from you over at comments@couricpodcast.com. We'll take questions, guest ideas, and, of course, feedback. You can also leave us a message at 929-224-4637.
I'm on social media a lot under Katie Couric. By the way, just follow me on Instagram. I'm a story-making fool. And Brian sends Twitter missives from the handle @GoldsmithB.
And if you've listened this far and you like the show,
if one of you out there is listening this far,
God help you, please know that we'd also appreciate it if you'd rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people to find the show. And don't forget to subscribe as well.
As always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Support for today's show comes from Google Play. Did you know that you can now download and listen to audiobooks on Google Play? That's right. With hands-free listening using Google Assistant or Chromecast, you can enjoy thousands of titles a la carte, no subscription necessary. There's even multi-device integration across the Google ecosystem. For a limited time, you get $10 off your first audiobook over $10 by visiting g.co/play/Katie. That's g.co/play/Katie. Find your story with audiobooks on Google Play. This podcast is sponsored by ADT. ADT can design and install a smart home just for you, backed by 24/7 protection, like Doorman Service, which is an ADT automation that unlocks the door for packages, friends, or your kids, all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice and backed by 24/7 protection. Just visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can design and install a secure smart home just for you.
Stitcher.
Do you ever get sick of all right?
No, because I'm the author, and it was the first words I ever said on screen in 1992.
Why don't you give me one more for the road?
One more for the road? Well, you can say yes, yes, yes. You can say mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You can say all right. All right, all right, all right.